I think I'm getting the hang, a little bit of a better grip, kind of a pun intended on this week's show on how this camera operates a little bit. So again, thank you to the Crazy Scotsman for generous gift of this camera to the show that we've been using and actually liking. So if that doesn't heat you up and cool you down at the same time. So anyway, thank you. Welcome back to the show. It is another Saturday morning, and we're going to go ahead and read through some comments here and everything. So we got some interesting things to talk about this time around. I thought, you know what? I don't think I've ever really we haven't sat down and like kind of like went through the evolution. I guess it wouldn't. I'm not trying to say it's the end all be all, but I guess through my uh, kind of discoveries as I start researching it on the grips and stuff from the 1911s, from dating from the a little bit of, I guess, pre World War II right up into the 70s, which is kind of where I kind of stop with the collecting of the Colt 1911s and whatnot. So anyway, if you like that kind of stuff, and then of course my subject, a little bit of movie chat because we got a really cool comment that was provided to us and breaking down some stuff that's actually like I, for one, did not think anybody else would, not anybody else would actually notice this stuff. But it's really cool because I'm like, wow, I am not alone in this movie world doing this. So anyway, here we go. DB says, top of the morning. Glad you're feeling better, and I am too. Thank you, DB. I left the cold Northeast 30 years ago for the beaches of Florida. Ooh, nice. Yes, nice warm beaches. I do miss the beach. Even though I never went in the water much, I do miss the beach. And never looked back. Yeah, I could see, definitely easy to do. Jeffrey Richardson says, good morning. Life is a wild thing. Absolutely family first. Yeah, life is a crazy thing, man. I tell you, everything, and I'm going to say this as somebody approaching the middle of the road. When you start to realize that you have more time behind you than you do ahead of you, and you realize that a lot of your friends and family is either gotten older, much older, or passed away, unfortunately, you start to really stop to think like, wow, what am I doing? Some people like, and I'm not saying you should like, embody everything, like, okay, my, spearhead everything to this and forget everything else. I'm not saying that, but like for some, like me, my main focus became the pretty much the last and only family member that I kind of really truly care about, which is my mom. So it just kind of shifts gears a little bit. Not saying that we should absolutely stop everything else or dead in its tracks or anything like that, but it does make me kind of feel like, well, I'm going to focus on that, her first, and make sure that I can accomplish going out and seeing her, spending time with her, and making sure we can buy all the things and happiness and fun things. I'm not saying buy happiness, but that like adventures and things that we could do together and pay for those. We've been really liking to do these things called escape rooms, and going and doing that with my mom because she's actually having fun with it too, which is cool, and I really really enjoy them. And I mean, they're not. I'm not saying they're cheap either. I mean, these things can be expensive, so they're anywhere from 100 $150, a turn. But in the end, so what? I go out with her, and throughout the vacation, we hit about four or five of these things. But you know what? In the end, these memories that I am creating with her, and for me, will be everlasting, and worth anything, worth beyond anything. So it's like kind of for me, my idea is like, would I rather buy something or go do this with her, that kind of a deal. So anyway, here we go with Mike. I enjoy the show, JW. I'm glad to hear you are focusing on family. Yes, it is very important that we all stop and do that and kind of remember, about family and stuff like that. Just like I said, for me, a lot of other things, the extracurricular activities that I really, um, it just goes on the back burner for me, So, and it kind of, a lot of things, for me in life has ran their course. Uh, just I've kind of hit the track a few times with it, and it's been fun. So I got all that like kind of out of my system, I guess. So maybe it's time to do other things, that kind of deal. All right. So uh, also, I share your appreciation for currently made firearms that we can use in our time. Like many of the styles that came from the past, I want to use them, but I am living in our time. That is just as important. That is just as important as the past. A walking. I am not a walking replica or pretend to live 100 years ago, but I want good things from the history available to me today. With that being said, I also really enjoy history. Best wishes from Montana. That's from Mike. What a wonderful comment. That really well. I totally love the what you're saying about that, and that's like kind of like where I'm at too. Is I really like the past. I really like the history. I like historical firearms. My main interest is all those type of, and I'm not. I mean, I think it's cool, but I mean, like for me, I'm not like trying to go like archaic bones and dust kind of days, like 1700s. But I really do have that extreme history in the old school 1911s, the old school revolvers, the police revolvers, the days of prohibition, all right. Like it's basically like a lot of my interest stops right around the 70s. Um, basically that war era, the great wars to the 70s, basically that time stretch is my favorite. Speaking of which, Mike, I don't know how many people out there know about this, but I discovered it myself this week. That Davidson's, if you're not familiar with Davidson's is a distributor, large distributor stuff. They have done their own exclusive reintroduction model from Smith and Wesson. I believe they call it the Model 20. Uh, I don't think it's exactly like an exact copy of anything in particular. I think it's more a kind of a free, loosely based on the registered Magnum, possibly even before that, back to relating to the 38-44 caliber. To my knowledge, which didn't do a whole lot of research on that, that was kind of almost like the original 357 Magnum, if you will. I could be wrong. I could be wrong on that. There's a very, very good chance I'm wrong on that, but that's to my understanding. So anyhow, what this is a end frame, 6-inch 357 Magnum with fixed rear sight. So it's basically a trench sight and the curvature half moon front sight taper barrel. Really cool. I thought it was really, really slick. It's got kind of more of the service grips on it, not the larger Magnum style target grips on it. It's got the more smaller service grips on it. I did see it. To my knowledge, it's kind of limited from Davidson's to like 500 of them or whatever. They are available. It does seem to be available right now. Um, it carries a hefty price tag of about 1,500 or something like that I saw. So I don't know how many people are actually wanting to do it. The stupid thing on it, which I thought was because I thought Smith and Wesson was heading in the right direction, was to what I gathered from the photos, it does have the key lock on it, which was like kind of like, wow, you guys are really. It's like, man, you guys really didn't learn anything, did you? Because even though it's not a deal breaker for me. If I had that kind of cash laying around just for fun, I would totally be interested in picking one up. So it wouldn't be a deal breaker for me. But for a lot of people, that is a very, very, negative. It's a huge negative, and it would definitely hurt your sales on that. And it's like, considering the fact that you had released a lineup of stuff, the Model 36, the Model 10, the Model 19, without the internal lock. What are you doing? So again, it's another reason why, like, I keep circling back to Colt now and what they're introducing, the Python, the the Viper, and all these wonderful revolvers they've been. I got, like I said, even the Viper has a pretty, the Viper has a pretty interest to me. I like that. I got to see one, and I like that 3-inch Python, Viper that they got. So anyway, but just thought I'd throw that out there. Speaking of all the history and throwbacks, Joe P, swig of coffee for Joe. Feel better soon. I appreciate that, Joe. Sunfire says, "Good morning, JW, and we're glad to see you back on the radio show. Sorry to hear you have been sick. I hope you get well soon. Thank you, very appreciate that. Again, I appreciate all the kind comments about that. You're just a down to earth person, and talking about your mom is awesome. My mother was the best. I miss her. So you go see your mom and enjoy being with her. Thanks, Slim. Yes, that is something. It's like we won't ever be able to. When people that are most important to us are gone, they're gone. That's it. And it's like you always kind of go, I wish I would have spent more time with them. So it's like my grandpa. Even though he died when I was kind of starting around in high school. Looking back at that, I would have loved to. I would give anything, to sit down and talk to him and hang out with him. And one of my fondest memories was even when I was as young as I was in this VHS days. No DVDs were invented yet. I used to go and hang out with him in his room, and we'd watch like a movie or Dirty Harry or something like that. And I remember one time, one of my favorite comments from him was, we went in and we watched The Alamo with John Wayne, with Mark and everything. So I went in and I brought in the tape, and it was a double taper. And those of us that go back to the VHS days, it was a double taper. So I remember watching it with him. And halfway through the movie, my grandpa says, "Man, this is kind of a dry movie, isn't it?" So, meaning that there wasn't a whole lot of action, and he was kind of like, so, but, my grandpa was, built back in the day, man. He was a World War II vet, and tough as nails right up to the day he went out. Didn't let the emphysema and the oxygen machines, stop him. He still kept trying to truck along. You could tell he was, he wanted to go. Just some days that his body just wouldn't, So, but yeah, I miss that guy. He was a good man. He, I always say he helped raise me. That's for sure. With mom. All right, the Crazy Scotsman. Glad to see you back. Glad you're better, brother. I appreciate that. One thing I've always found funny over the years, being in the industry, is the wild claims people will make not just about how many thousands upon thousands they have ran through something, the strength of this or that, etc. You hear all kinds of crazy things. At the end of the day, being part of the industry aside, we should be looking to help others and have a better understanding and put an end to the scuttlebutt. Yeah, being in the industry, and I'm glad I'm not in it anymore, to be honest with you guys. But you do hear some of the most just ridiculous things sometimes, and I'm not, and trust me, I spent 14 years doing it or something like that. The scale doesn't tip for me. All the bad stuff doesn't tip to all the good stuff and the fun stuff that I experienced while I was doing it all. But yeah, you hear some of the most stupidest things that this guy, I remember I met him, and everything this guy had said was absolutely full of baloney. He said something about in one range session, he was like, in one range session, I put 1 million rounds of 45 ACP through a 1911. Impossible. I'm sorry. Impossible. Not in one range session, not in one 1911. I don't even care if that was a Glock 21. I don't think it can't be done. So the world would know. So it's kind of like those fish stories, being from the island, man. The fish gets bigger every time they tell it. It's like, my buddy said somebody told him a story about somebody attacking and killing a bear with a plastic spoon. All right, this one's from Cap. Glad you're feeling better. It was very moving to hear you praise your mom. She has a good son in you. It's great to be in a position to get back to our parents. Yes, that's to me that was one of the most important things. My mom throughout my life has always given me, always if she could do it, she would do it for me. And so now it's like I feel like I need to, I'm gonna try to at least pay back some like minuscule, salt grain of that, because I would never be able to give back everything she's given me, never. All right, Mickey Mantle. Good morning, friend. Absolutely love the format of hearing what's on your mind, like-minded people. I had the bug sickness, influenza. I called off for the first time in 25 years. Kick my butt. Yeah. I'm for one. I don't like calling out sick. Don't like staying home sick. But man, yeah, that was sometimes, man. And that's why I always say, and this is this has kind of been my mentality for all this stuff. These people that like to just play hooky in a sense, like I don't want to go to work today because I don't feel like it, so I'm just going to pretend to be sick. I don't like that. The big reason I'm not a fan of doing that is because one day you're going to be really sick and you're going to wish, because it's kind of like that old story goes, the boy who cried wolf. I've never owned a 29 or a 629. Had a couple chances, never followed through. A buddy has one like new and offered to me for 1,200. I just haven't pulled the trigger. Yeah, and 1,200 is not a bad price. 1,200 is not a bad price. I think what did I can't remember for mine. The one I picked up for my Christmas present to myself last year. I got a good price, and then of course there was a rebate. It was a rebate of like $250 or something like that, which was really cool, and I got that. So that was awesome. So I think mine ended up in the end. It ended up being like under $1,000 or something like that. So something good like that. It was good. It was worth it. It's one of my favorites. Glad to hear mom's okay. But yes, we are all getting older. Blessings to you and her. I do appreciate that. Blessings to you and her, friend. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Warren here says, wishing you the very best for speedy recovery. Thank you. Sadly, we lost Richard Chamberlain and martial arts actor Richard Norton. Yeah. You know what? That's crazy. That once you said that, it was like, wow, it was like a boom, 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 like holy smokes, like within like a time frame of like literally like a week or something. It was like just, yeah, that's crazy that we're losing so many of them out there. Really good, talented people, that brought a lot of really cool stuff. So, all right, and here we go, JW, and yes, this does help. Thank you. It's getting so hard for me to read stuff sometimes. So this helps. I'm going to actually try to make the screen a little bit bigger. I am not a computer savvy person, people, so bear with me. All right, good morning. Thought it might be easier to read like this. It is. Thank you. Excuse me. Magnum Force, Dillinger, and Red Dawn are my favorite John Milius movies. Yes, I did forget Red Dawn. Red Dawn is definitely a really good one. We're talking about the Swayze, original Swayze movie, okay? Not that garbage remake. Sorry, I had to throw that out there. You don't remake stuff like Swayze. Nobody's ever going to do it like Patrick Swayze did. All right. But they have some glaring problems with firearm depictions. Yes, and I love this. This was always like later on in life when I realized it, I was like, dang, that was stupid. And we're talking about David Soul's slide on the suppressor silencer is absolute nonsense. Yeah. Those of you that do remember, like now, God, Magnum Force is my absolute favorite, one of my favorite, movies. I probably watch that out of all of them the most for sure. But yeah, when he just slides that suppressor onto his 4-inch python, that was like when you later on know that's like, oh my gosh, that cannot happen. That it's just like, I mean, first of all, even if, okay, even if you're, you're gonna like let's take away the fact that that's like just like scientifically not possible to do. Even if you took away the cylinder gap thing, if you watch it, he just slides it on. He really does. He just goes, shh. That thing would fly right off. So anyway, all right. Harry using his python at combat range to recover a bullet for ballistics comparison was too far fetched. Regardless, it's a pretty good movie with Suzanne Somers' boobies out. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like that? Well, it made me want a Smith and Wesson Model 76. Yeah, just walking up in a black leather bag like that. That was kind of interesting. But I would spend too much money on 9mm ammo. As for Dillinger, okay, this is so cool. I really, honestly, I was like, am I the only one that's ever noticed this? But here we go. I am glad that you wrote this. I'm a bit unclear as to what the character name or actress name was. Same was playing Johnny's girlfriend at the lodge shootout. But okay, let's just read the comment because I know exactly the scene you're talking about. But she is firing an automatic weapon from a window. Only problem is that one flash scene, it's a Thompson, and then immediately after, before, it's a BAR. Yeah, it literally is, people. Like, if you watch the scene, I don't know how many people have seen this movie, but it's seriously like she's shooting a Tommy, and then all of a sudden, like literally, like in a split second, she's got a BAR, and it's like, you know what? To me, I'm like, what was up with this? Why did you know what? And it also kind of goes back to another scene to me, like, and I wonder if this had anything to do. Actually, let's go ahead and finish your comment because you may have actually just answered my own theory there. I just realized that. Those are heavy pieces of equipment. I'm inclined to believe that the blank firing devices were simulated to look like real things, but be light enough for her to hold them. In the window scene, she is shown firing and screaming, but somehow she came through with barely a scratch. Homer wasn't so lucky finding himself in the middle of a circular firing squad, yeah, which was ridiculous. Just as ridiculous as the bus going through in the gauntlet. Um, as for Red Dawn, I think it's the best of the three because we can see a story of real possibility. By the way, Harry Dean Stanton was pivotal in both Red Dawn and Dillinger movies are great entertainment, but rarely documentary in truth. That is true. A lot, and that's it too. Like they may not necessarily be 100% like factual. That's for sure, but they're cool. They're entertainment. It takes us to another place for that hour and a half, 2 hours. It takes us on that roller coaster ride. It takes us to that magical place. To me, it's like that's why I like escape rooms because like my mom and I did this escape room. It's like a fairy tale land thing when we go in there, and because of the way it's set up, the props and all the stuff, it really takes you away. It makes you feel like you're in a whole other world for just that fraction of time. So it's real cool. Okay, so cool thing. So this is kind of harking back to another scene in Dillinger. There's a scene where they're coming out of the bank. I haven't seen it for a while, so forgive me. I'm not like, and it's Jeffrey Lewis's character. He has like a BAR, I think it is, and he goes to fire and it starts jamming up. So he just takes this thing and just rams it like a spear right through the windshield of the Ford. And it's like, holy smokes, like, was this even, like, it almost looks like, was this written? Did they say, hey, go, like, I don't know. I'm sure it probably was, but it just looks so like, wow. So here's my theories on some of this stuff and why it's like that. I think it was hard to blank adapt a lot of stuff. I think some stuff they did, and then, like you said, though, I think some of it was probably just simulated, but I think a lot of it was really hard to blank adapt. I've heard stories of really older movies where they couldn't blank adapt to Thompson. I don't know. Again, don't quote me on this being 100% because it's totally, I have no way to, fact check this or totally, but I've heard stories of a movie where they had to light up a car with a Thompson and they couldn't get the blanks to work. So that, I mean, now we're talking old movies, okay, really old movies. This is like way before where they were a lot, where so I heard they went out to some location, took the car, and actually just fired a real Thompson at it, and just filmed that. So things like that, I wouldn't be surprised. Of course, like um, going back to my love of horror flicks, take Dawn of the Dead, the original '70s. Okay, um, there's a scene where the SWAT people invade whatever that building full of people was, and one of the zombies, boom, head pops off. To my understanding, Tom Savini just loaded a shotgun and blew the head off. Something you could never do. Same thing. They used that same method in Tom Savini's effects movie, The Maniac, with the late Joe Spinell. They did the same thing in that one. And then also, I believe in The Prowler, at the end of The Prowler. So these are all Tom Savini effects, and then notably using an actual firearm to, basically detonate this, spectacular effects in it. So it's crazy to think that they used to do stuff like this. That's why, again, my older movies is such a, really cool thing. Like the end of Taxi Driver, when you hear of the Dick Smith, the special effects guy that did movies like The Exorcist, Scanners, creating the bladder makeup and stuff like that. Really, you could chalk it up to Dick Smith being the pioneer of a lot of that effects things. Back in the, back then and all that. So, and of course, The Exorcist to me still holds the full bucket of water. That movie is still the most frightening of movies of that nature, to me. And that movie was done in the '70s, and I still think it's probably the scariest of them all. It still is. It tops them all. That's the granddaddy of all, demonic possession type, movies like that. That and The Omen with Gregory Peck. So anyway, but yeah, I think a lot of this stuff had to do with blank adapting. If you watch The Getaway with Steve McQueen, Alan McGraw, he's carrying an original, like, old school 1911 throughout the film. And then I believe when you see him shooting it, they used a Star 9 pistol because they could blank adapt those. They couldn't do that with the standard, government 45. And speaking of that, I also wanted to throw this little tidbit in there because I always thought that it was kind of, and you know what? And JW, by the way, I love your comments. I love you chiming in and doing that. Man, that was so cool. You got me on a roll with this comment this week. This kind of goes to the what I observed, and again, nothing I'm saying is like set in stone or factual 100%. To what I noticed was, speaking of like movies like The Getaway, Sam Peckinpah, the director. If you look at the movie The Wild Bunch, when The Wild Bunch came out, 1969, Wild Bunch came out. Think about the films that were right before it throughout the '60s, and for me, mostly I think about the Dukes films, all the John Wayne films. And then all of a sudden, The Wild Bunch comes out. 1969, The Wild Bunch comes out. And look at that movie. And I think, my opinion on that is, I think that changed cinema right there. I think that changed it because people just were so wowed by that I think that changed cinema. Because if you look now, '69, right into the '70s, what did we start seeing? We start seeing, and everything. A good example of that, watch the beginning of Big Jake with John Wayne, Richard Boone. Watch the beginning of that movie. The beginning of Big Jake is like a gore fest. It's insanely violent. And that movie, and if you look back at that movie, it's like rated G. If I had that on VHS, and that movie, that videotape was rated G. I'm gonna tell you something. Big Jake should not be rated G. that movie should be rated R. I I don't know. I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen that. I mean, that movie is violent. Um, so I think the Wild Bunch set a tone. It really did. And then throughout the '70s, you had other things going on. I mean, look what rolled out. Not just in westerns. I mean, look at what rolled out. And you could almost say that I mean, the Wild Bunch is a western, but it's kind of because they got 1911s, they got Model 97s, and so it's kind of cool. It's one of the cooler westerns, definitely, in the way it's filmed. But you could also look at Sam Peckinpah's Own, The Getaway. That's look at that movie. Just the scene where Alatari in the car when they're driving away and he decides to off the guy that was part of the robbery with his Colt Python. Look at that scene alone, just in the car, that point blank thing. Gosh, that was like, ooh, wow. So then if you look, what spawned after? You had Dirty Harry, you had Death Wish, you had Rolling Thunder, Taxi Driver, so it just all of a sudden it just started to, create this, spectacle of a lot of that stuff. So, all right, anyway, we're going to talk about grips for a small section of this show here. Now, again, I'm going to tell you this. This is just something I discovered. I'm not saying that this is should be written in a book and that's the way it is. By no means. I'm sure I'm wrong in many places here. But this is just what I observed. World War II comes around. Let's just start there. World War II, and I'm talking about the Colt 1911s. Okay, World War II rolls around. They outfitted the 1911s with this phenolic resin type grips, very similar to these. These are not actual World War II ones, but they look pretty much exactly like this. The brown plastic grips. I'm not sure exactly the material they use, phenolic resin, some composite, stuff like that. That's what they had. They were brown. My friend, I carry one. He says that he calls them the Keys grips because I believe that's who made them. He would know. He's very knowledgeable on a lot of that old stuff. So anyway, that's what they would have looked like. Very similar to that. Before that, slightly before that, they were like this. Now, fully checkered, no diamonds on the screw holes. Before that, slightly before that, they were wood. And I think then they just changed to that phenolic resin thing. So that went on until because throughout even post World War II, 46, which I think in 1946, the commercial guns were the rarest. Through the 46, 47, right up to the 50s, that's what they had. They were pretty much outfitting them all with this type grip because they probably, like Hackathorn had said, a lot of old parts still left over from the war. So they're using them. At some point, they run out. They run out of those grips. What does Colt start doing? Throughout the 50s commercials and the 60s, very early 60s to mid, they started outfitting with this, their own phenolic resin type grips. With the Colt logo, which was not very good. You can see it. It's kind of, it's just basically like when you look at it, it's like, wow, it's a horse. Okay, it's a rampant horse. That's it. And they were brown, and they kind of had this orange swirl thing going on with them. So that it's like, okay, that's interesting. I guess they were simulating wood. They call them Colt wood grips. To my research, that's what I found. You'll see them in two different types. You'll also see them in just straight brown like that. I have seen more of those than the melotted or modded or whatever. I carry one. Told me a word that they called this, but so that went on through the 50s, through the the 60s, and then as the 60s started to get towards 68, 69, they did start changing over to wood, and so some of the wood grips comes on. Now it went from that era of that commercial gun that was pretty much the same roll marks from the 50s and the 60s, So, and then as they enter the 70s, out comes the Series 70 pistol, as we know, with the collet barrel bushing. That's what makes it the Series 70 during that time. In fact, the very early collectibles of the Series 70 pistols, the serial number prefix was BB, which stood for barrel bushing. They changed to wood, and as what has been referred to them as the old school barn siding grips, which I could see why they got that term, because it does. It looked like they just tore down a barn and started making grips out of the siding of it. Not really, not most useful grips, but they are wood. There's full on wood grain, that's for sure. It does look like they took some barn siding grips. Fairly lightweight stuff. I mean, not anything, to write home about. Also, that kind of takes it to, if you read Olaf, Deer Hollow Grips Enterprises, go read his write up on the Python grips. I love that stuff. History and how they were making them back then. Really cool. Look at 1955, Smith and Wesson, the end frame, as we know now as the Model 29. Those old school grips, known as the Coke bottle grips. Most people chucked them, took them off, and, got rid of them. Now look, they're hundreds of dollars, stuff like that. People that copied them, what is it, the Roper grips or something like that? Another, and now those are totally just copied grips from back then. But, of course, it was somebody who's doing them. Those are bringing astronomical prices. So anyway, these grips then turned into my favorite Colt grips, which is this same grip, but fully checkered now. All checkering, all checkering, no diamonds on the screw hole, area. So my favorite, and then of course, then so on, which I stopped, collecting after that. So anyway, that's kind of a rundown, a little bit of my, my gathering on the grips. Of course, people can add to that because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I'm missing. But I'm just referring to the Colt era, just that from what I saw in the grips and everything like that. And I love grips, and so does I carry one, and so does many of you. That I know you love searching for grips, because just changing the grips can make a huge difference and make it that much cooler, right? So anyway, thank you. Appreciate you hanging out with me this Saturday. Loved making this episode because a lot of cool stuff to talk about. So hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you.